We will follow up and report back to council.
Thank you, sir. All right, then. We are now time to give the budget preview. As council members know, and for the benefit of the community, our city code requires that a budget document be delivered to council on April 15th when we're able to, and it falls on a weekend. We try to do that on the Friday, which we are aiming to do this Friday. It really just depends on when we get it fully printed, but we will deliver the budget document to the council and then to the libraries either on Friday or on Saturday. But we traditionally use this opportunity to do what I call effectively the manager's message about the budget so that you know what's coming and have a chance to process that, and the public gets a chance to hear a message before the first budget public hearing, which will be in 2 weeks. And so Robin's going to assist me with the presentation, but I'll really be speaking to it. The fiscal 2018 manager's recommended budget is going to total $467,844,000, which is roughly a 1% increase from the fiscal 2017 budget. Of this amount, the city's operating portion is $186,324,480, or about 39.8%. The school's operating portion is $203,660,107, or about 43.5%, and other items such as debt and capital for city and schools, regional entities, outside agencies, and the like total about $77,859,413, or 16.7%. This is the 8th budget I've prepared since becoming city manager. This budget, like previous ones, is austere. Real estate property values did show an increase for the 3rd straight year after several years of decline. However, while clearly showing a positive trend, annual increases in the 1% range are not what we comfortably need to budget for the future. Since employee compensation and benefits make up nearly 50% of the budget and more than 80% of the school budget, we need at least 3% growth to give the type of salary increases we would all like to give our well-deserving employees without having to cut internally to do so. I am pleased that despite this tepid growth, we were able to make major investments in our top priorities without an increase in the real estate tax. Our top budget priorities were to continue to provide our hardworking employees competitive compensation increases and to invest in public safety to combat the increase in crime that has been experienced in Hampton, the region, and many other communities across the state and country. We have also continued to our commitment to education with additional investments above and beyond the local funding formula increases, with a specific emphasis on the Hampton City Schools Career Academy initiative. To shift funding to these priorities, we continue to review internal savings opportunities. Internal efficiency is a hallmark of the Hampton organization, and I am pleased that we are able to generate some savings to enhance these investments. We also benefited from timing. Several multi-year commitments will end this year, thus freeing up money to apply to these critical priorities. While the budget includes departmental decreases of over $1 million across the organization, there are no layoffs of full-time staff due to budgetary reductions. Overall, I believe this budget represents the best work our staff could collectively deliver for our community, and I'm proud to highlight each of the areas in more detail. And I'd like to start with community budget input, because one of the accomplishments that I'm most proud of since becoming city manager is that we've been able to get citizen budget input before finalizing a manager's recommended budget. This is not something that many communities do, but it's become a hallmark of the way that we engage with the public about the budget. And I firmly believe that we get a better budget when we know what the residents want and expect before we come to our recommended budget for you. Over the past 7 years, the public has been asked many questions, and we continue to use their guidance as the budget develops. These sessions have been invaluable, particularly as hard choices have to be made. This year was no different. We heard from more than 1,000 citizens about their views concerning the recreational vehicle or RV personal property tax, EMS fee policy changes, and the solid waste fee increase, as well as increased investments in our police department. The vast majority of the public supported these changes. We also changed the way we compiled the capital improvement plan this year, and were able to get feedback from our residents on what strategic priority projects were most important to them. This year, we added philosophical questions about how we should approach future budgets if we're challenged by continued slow revenue growth and/or, as we know more recently with the release of President Trump's budget, the possibility of reduced federal contributions. While we were not faced with some of the hard choices we've had in recent years, we felt it was important to get resident feedback on these issues in case those things change. I believe you will find this budget aligns with the community input provided, as well as the Council's adopted strategic priorities. The first of those priorities is educated and engaged citizens. Throughout the challenging economic times, the city has maintained our commitment to our local schools, and we certainly continue to do so in the fiscal 18 budget. Our local funding formula calls for the city and school system to share residential tax base growth or decline in the years where we had that. Our residential property tax base is still continuing to recover from the national housing crisis. However, it did rise enough to boost our contribution to the schools via that formula by $235,881. The city is providing another $64,119 in recurring operating funds above the local funding formula to support our school's budget request. In addition, the city will also provide $265,000 in one-time funding to support one-time costs associated with implementing the new school career academies. I am truly excited about the Career Academy initiative, as it will align the way our schools teach with the passions of the students and the needs of our business community. I believe this approach will enhance student achievement and meet the most pressing needs of local businesses, resulting in a highly skilled and ready workforce to fuel growth. I do not believe it's an overstatement to say this effort will be truly transformational for our schools and our community. Because Hampton City Schools has requested the city transfer $1 million of the previously allocated $2 million in the capital budget for the one-to-one technology program to their operating budget, their general fund contribution will increase by a total of $1.565 million. Previously, the $2 million was fully needed to purchase the computing devices for the program, but now that all middle and high school students have devices and Hampton City Schools has moved to less expensive devices, they do not need the full $2 million for capital purchases. Rather, they need $1 million to support training, professional development, and technology specialists who support the program, and we are glad to honor that request. In fiscal 18, the city's operating budget contribution is $73,036,419, or 96% more than the required local contribution as determined by the state formula. That means the city is contributing nearly twice what the state requires us to contribute. I want to emphasize that because I think it speaks to our strong commitment to our schools. When the states tell localities what you must provide to meet the state SOL requirements, they say Hampton should only need to provide about half of what we're providing. But every school division in the state of Virginia requires more support from their localities than the state requires. And we meet that challenge by stepping up and providing this $73 million more than the required contribution from the state. While we have worked to improve the state funds and the allocation and the state's understanding of the need to do this, their commitment has not returned to what we feel is necessary, and we'll continue to work on that. Additionally, this budget maintains our capital commitments to our school division with nearly $5.3 million above and beyond this figure set aside for school maintenance and upgrades, as well as the remaining $1 million for the one-to-one capital technology initiative. While we have worked hard to meet the needs of our schools, as I said, the state budget challenges continue to be an issue. During the recession, the state cut nearly $29 million from our school system, and they have yet to restore those funds. Last year, the General Assembly increased support by nearly $5 million initially, but mid-year, when the state experienced additional budget challenges, they pulled back on that funding, forcing the schools to enter their fiscal 2018 budget development process with $2 million deficit due to that cut. Ultimately, the General Assembly did approve an increase for our schools above the fiscal 17 level, which helped their budget situation a great deal. But the state still has a lot of ground to make up, getting the school funding back to pre-recession funding levels. And we all need to continue to be vigilant in trying to help to get this done so we can relieve pressure from the local taxpayers. I will say that we feel confident investing these funds in our school system as they consistently perform better than other urban school districts across all measures. Our schools have continued to make exciting advancements, as I mentioned earlier, focusing on career-based academies and becoming the first urban district in our area to commit to one-to-one devices to all middle and high school students. These investments are paying dividends. The Ford Next Generation Learning Institute, a highly regarded offshoot of the Ford Motor Company, selected Hampton City Schools as one of its Career Academy partnerships, the only one so far that has been certified. We'll actually get our designation next Thursday in the state of Virginia. And the school system was selected as one of the most technologically advanced school systems in the nation. Strong schools are not only essential for the students who attend them, but they also contribute to the city's economic growth as businesses and families base their investment decisions, at least in part, on school quality. As we've already noted, we believe the Career Academy initiative will position our schools and city for an even brighter future. Now, these advancements would not be possible without our excellent teachers who prepare our youth for their future. And I'm pleased that between the state and local increased revenue, the schools will be able to provide a 2% raise for our teachers and all support staff. The school system will also be able to make market adjustments to the teacher pay scale. The next of our council's strategic priorities is safe and clean community. As we know, over the last year, localities around our region and country have experienced an uptick in crime, especially in youth violence and robberies. While our police cannot be expected to solve this challenge on their own, for it's truly a community-wide issue, it is critical that we respond to these challenges and support our police department. Last year, we focused on equipping our officers with the resources they need to do their part exceedingly well. In addition to the investments we made in the 2017 budget adopted by Council, we also made mid-year investments in technology, equipping each officer with a smartphone so they can access cutting-edge police technology and increase efficiency. We joined the National Ballistics Information Network in a partnership with Newport News, and we implemented enhancements to the real-time crime center we are developing. New police vehicles will also be equipped with bulletproof doors through the Equipment Replacement Fund. In addition to the equipment investments, we began making investments to expand our police presence on the street. In the middle of fiscal 17, the city received a COPS grant from the federal government that partially funded the cost of 5 new officers, which again were added mid-year. In addition to picking up these, the full year of these officers in 18, the city is also funding the addition of 7 new additional officers for a total of 12 that should be added to our streets this fiscal year. These new officers will enable us to continue to move forward with the implementation of proven community policing models for public safety while ensuring that we keep a strong, consistent presence on the street. To continue to combat youth violence with intervention and prevention, the city is also picking up the full cost of the youth violence prevention initiatives. These initiatives were originally funded with alcohol, tobacco, and firearm funds on a pilot program basis. Due to the success of the programs, we've been gradually transitioning them to be fully supported by the general fund. This is the last year of that transition. Additionally, this budget adds money for 5 more slots to expand the summer youth employment program and an additional $10,000 in grant funds for grassroots organizations that support our youth violence prevention efforts. Additional funding has been added to upgrade 911 dispatcher pay so we can attract and retain employees in these critical jobs. Region-wide shortages have caused challenges for all localities. The improved pay should stabilize our workforce and make it easier to compete for the best applicants. Our new Public Safety Career Academy at Bethel High School will provide a future pipeline of applicants, benefiting both the city and the student with employment immediately upon graduation. In the meantime, these pay changes, however, are needed. To fund the fiscal 18 public safety enhancements, the budget shifts $500,000 from the City Council Capital Strategic Priority Funds to the operating budget. These funds come from a dedicated portion of the tax rate reserved for strategic investments and can be shifted for ongoing expenses such as these, which are clearly in alignment with both council and community strategic priorities. We are recommending this action so that the necessary investments can be made in public safety to continue to combat the rising crime rate across the region and to ensure that our officers have the tools they need to be successful in today's environment. The budget includes raises and compression adjustments authorized and funded by the state for our Sheriff's Department, as well as increased funding for the Hampton Roads Regional Jail Authority, and covers the cost of an additional attorney added mid-year to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office to address the workload increase associated with police body cameras. We've added $100,000 to enhance our public safety street lighting program. Based on resident feedback, we started funding additional public safety-related street lighting in fiscal 17, initially at a level of $100,000. So this additional $100,000 will expand that program to $200,000 per year. We've also funded a series of needs in the capital budget, including the replacement of LifePak defibrillators and cardiac monitors used by the Fire and Rescue Division, expanding the parking lot at Fire Station 11 to accommodate the relocated Emergency Operations Center, repairs and equipment replacement for the jail, vehicles for new officers, the radio equipment lease, and blight abatement. The new With Fire Station, 911 EOC Center, radio equipment lease, blight abatement, and police vehicles are also funded in out years of the 5-year capital improvement plan. The third council priority is family resilience and economic empowerment. In addition to continuing to fund our anti-poverty programs, the budget also funds 1 family support specialist to continue the prevention and early intervention partnership with our schools and courts. The budget also picks up half the cost of a position to continue and expand a veterans court to help veterans who are struggling with substance abuse, post-traumatic stress, and/or other mental health issues. A small program focused only on drug-related issues was previously funded with a federal grant, but this effort will allow us to serve more veterans. The budget also funds a $200,000 increase in Hampton Roads transit funding. We are also continuing the partnership with the Peninsula Community Foundation that we started in fiscal 17 to conduct a needs assessment of the Old Hampton and North Phoebus sections of our community. This needs assessment will identify opportunities to build on existing community assets to support family resilience and economic empowerment of residents in these areas. Our next strategic priority is economic growth. This budget funds a full-time development coordinator position to support the economic development goals of the Phoebus Partnership. Additionally, I'm happy to report that the revenue growth at the Convention Center will allow us to reduce the planned subsidy to the Convention Center by $250,000 this year. The capital budget funds investments in economic growth, including the extensions of Coliseum Drive and Commerce Drive, which will open up property for additional development in the Coliseum Central area. Commitments to the housing improvement grants and strategic property acquisition are also continued in fiscal 18, along with improvements in the Hampton Roads Center area of the city. More investments will be determined as City Council continues to refine strategic priorities for economic growth in the later years of the capital improvement plan. The public provided feedback on these potential projects will be used to inform those decisions. We expect to actively work on the strategic investments above the baseline capital budget and CIP this summer after completing the budget. Living with water. The budget also funds an increase in the city's contribution to the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission to support regional coastal resiliency efforts. In addition to continuing to fund our investments in cleaning the Chesapeake Bay through stormwater improvements, the fiscal 18 capital budget includes a major flood mitigation project at Indian River Creek and Pochin Place, as well as a beach nourishment study at Buckrow Beach. Funding for Buckrow Beach nourishment, salt ponds dredging, and inlet improvements are included in the out years of the 5-year CIP. Placemaking is another council strategic priority. In this area, we've added $30,000 to non-departmental to continue to support the Love Your City grant program that was initiated with one-time money in fiscal 17. This program is designed to support small events and festivals that promote fun in our community. We are activating our waterfronts with watercraft rentals available this summer at 3 of our parks. This initiative will provide both fun activities for residents and visitors, as well as some revenue from the proceeds. In addition to continuing to fund park maintenance projects, citywide landscaping, and neighborhood improvements, the capital budget also funds the completion of the Fort Monroe Sailing Center, bus stop improvements, and North King Street streetscaping from Lincoln Street to I-64. In future years, the CIP includes additional streetscape projects on King Street and Pembroke Avenue, Cunningham Drive sidewalks, and park maintenance, citywide landscaping, neighborhood improvements, and bus stop improvements. Good government is the final of our strategic priorities. This budget funds the second year of the program to regularly replace the city's personal computers. The amount of funding is lower than last year's because the program is funded with 15% of the actual departmental savings achieved in the prior fiscal year. The budget funds more than $1 million increases in fixed cost, of which about $600,000 is in the equipment replacement fund to support the replacement of city's fleet vehicles. Fixed costs have largely been held level in past few years. We continue to fund street resurfacing, water infrastructure rehabilitation, facility maintenance, and reengineering technology in the fiscal 18 capital budget and into future years of the CIP as well. The fiscal 18 capital budget also includes funding for a traffic signal retiming, replacement of the facility that stores salt used for treating roads during the snow. Future years of the CIP include the Little Back River Road reconstruction, as well as a new traffic signal at the North Campus Parkway and Magruder Boulevard. Last but certainly not least is employee compensation, which is effectively a subset of our Good Government Council strategic priority. As I mentioned at the outset, employee compensation was one of our very top priorities for the fiscal 18 budget. I'm pleased to report that the recommended budget honors this commitment with a 2% increase for all permanent full-time employees. While we were initially planning to return to a merit pay system this year, additional work needs to be done to put in place a new evaluation tool. Department heads serving on the City Manager's Budget Review Committee recommended we wait until the new evaluation system is in place before returning to merit-based raises. Therefore, the 2% will be provided across the board, effective with the first pay raise, with the first pay cycle in July. This budget once again funds a mid-year citizen satisfaction bonus of up to $250 for full-time employees and $125 for eligible part-time employees. The actual bonus is based upon the percentage of residents who express satisfaction with the way employees perform their jobs, as reflected in the Citizen Satisfaction Survey. This bonus will be funded out of end-of-the-year departmental savings, as was done in previous 2 years. Doing so is appropriate since it is our employees who generate the savings. Tying the bonus to citizen satisfaction provides a critical link between employees and the customers they serve. The budget also funds a change to the city's promotion policy. Historically, the city provided an 8% increase or a 10% of moving from non-exempt to exempt status for internal promotions, but allowed managers to hire people from outside the organization at a 10% raise. This often put managers in a position where they could pay people coming from outside the organization more than people who were promoted within. The proposed policy increases the promotion raise to 10% or 12% if going from non-exempt to exempt. Making this change will certainly cost more money, but it is the right thing to do, especially to ensure that we reward and retain our existing talent. The budget covers the city's portion of the increase in health insurance premiums and the full employer-employee share of life insurance premiums. I want to note that the city's portion of health insurance premiums is at least 70%, in some cases more, depending upon the plan selected. That's a pretty significant increase. Employees participating in our plan will have a slight increase in their share of the premiums, again 30% or less of that full premium, as we projected last year. The premium increases are relatively modest and should be less than a full-time employee's 2% pay increase, ensuring that all employees see an increase in take-home pay. The quarterly bonus personal days begun several years ago as a non-monetary incentive for employees when raises were not consistently provided, also remains in the budget. Although we have returned to consistent raises, this personal day benefit is treasured by the workforce. Since our employees continue to work under stressful conditions with manning that's lower than our other cities, it is appropriate that we continue to reward them with this benefit. Taken together, the compensation package will keep us competitive with our peer localities in the region. These general wage increases, as I said, will go in effect July 2017. Investments in our workforce are reflective of a shared management and council commitment to consistent, sustainable wage increases as a primary budget priority as we continue to recover from the recession. Taxes and fees. As I noted at the outset, this budget does not include increases in general real estate or personal property tax rates. Our goal is always to avoid general tax increases unless absolutely necessary. As discussed in our community budget conversations, however, there is a need for a solid waste user fee increase of 22 cents per week or $11.44 total for the year. This increase is actually smaller than the one we projected 2 years ago, reflecting our ongoing commitment to only ask residents for what is needed. The stormwater user fee increase that was projected for this year was not needed, and thus there is no proposed rate change to that fee or the wastewater fee. Also, as discussed in our community budget conversations, there were 2 targeted initiatives that will impact smaller parts of the community. First, after the city imposed a boat registration fee 2 years ago, citizens who were pushing for the reinstitution of the boat tax asked that we look at the recreational or RV tax. In looking at this issue, we found that all of the other localities in the region had an RV tax in place, with rates ranging from a low of $1 per hundred of assessed value in Newport News to the regular $4 personal property tax rate in York and James City County. Most communities had a $1.50 rate. Thus, we are proposing this rate in the budget. We believe that the rate increase is needed not only for parity, but also to ensure that we're not inadvertently encouraging residents from other communities to park their vehicles in Hampton to avoid taxes in their community. We have accidentally created a financial incentive for RVs to be imported to Hampton. With the upcoming changes to the RV parking ordinance, staff felt it important to reverse this unintended incentive. During our community polling, we found that more than 85% of residents agreed with reinstituting a personal property tax on RVs. In terms of policy changes, one relates to the EMS fees and the other to extended stay hotel lodging taxes. These are being put forward to stabilize revenue sources for the future. Under our insurance billing program, co-pays for EMS fees were waived for residents. Recent developments, principally a market shift to high deductible plans, threaten the stability of this revenue source, which supports the operating budget of the Hampton Fire and Rescue Division. Additionally, other cities, including Newport News, with whom we are working on an automatic mutual aid dispatch for routine calls, do charge residents co-pays. These facts combined caused us to seek public input on changing our policy. Residents overwhelmingly supported charging co-pays, both to protect automatic mutual aid dispatching program with Newport News and to stabilize the EMS revenue source. While rates will not change as a result of this policy change, residents will become responsible for co-pays that are not covered by insurance. A hardship policy will remain in effect for those who are not able to afford the copay. The other policy change relates to extended stay hotel lodging taxes. Current city code limits collection of lodging tax to those in extended stay properties for stays of 60 days or less. State code permits up to 90 days, and other cities throughout the Commonwealth, such as Virginia Beach, take full advantage of this 90 days. Changing our policy to 90 days stays will result in an additional $75,000 of revenue for the community, coming largely from out-of-town guests. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about operational efficiency measures briefly. As you know, over the last 7 years, we have reorganized departments to streamline and create efficiencies. More than 125 positions have been eliminated during the recession in the years that followed. Although Hampton ranks as one, if not the most efficient governments in Hampton Roads relative to population size, we nevertheless continue to work to identify opportunities to be more efficient every year. And this year, of course, was no different. In our review of departmental operations, we identified over $1 million in savings through various reductions to departments. This savings is above and beyond the over $500,000 in savings we achieved through long-term leases that are now coming off the books, and is a big reason why we were able to achieve our strategic priorities this year. While we continue to work to identify opportunities for savings each year, budget cuts made since the recession have been more and more challenging. Additional cuts in the future would likely result in service reductions and eliminations or disinvestment in our infrastructure or economic development efforts. This is because once you reduce the budget, you can't keep reducing it. Through their participation in the I-Value budget process, our citizens have recognized this and indicated resistance to further service reductions. Our departments have been excellent stewards of public funds, consistently finding innovative ways to stretch funding to meet community needs. Hampton consistently offers comparable services at lower costs when compared to other jurisdictions, a testament to the commitment, hard work, and innovation of our managers and staff. However, most departments have had stagnant or declining operational budgets, even in the face of rising cost. There is only so long we can do this. Thus, all cuts are painful and come with some consequence. That said, cuts were needed to invest in our top priorities. In short, I believe this budget continues us on the path of addressing some of the most pressing needs, even in spite of the reductions made. We will need to continue down this path of reinvestment in future years. I'd like to conclude with a little bit of look ahead. I'm pleased that we've been able to recommend a budget that provides a raise for our employees, continues our strategic investments, and maintains current service levels without a major tax increase. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that while we see many positive things happening in our community, we also face some uncertainty. With the change in the federal government priorities initiated by the new presidential administration, we face a number of questions. There are indications that defense-related spending may increase, which of course would benefit Hampton through increased spending in military bases and work at the shipyard. And the President's initial budget proposal would also boost spending for the Department of Veteran Affairs, which could increase employment and expansion at the VA Medical Center. However, other changes could have negative impacts. Changing federal priorities could potentially negatively impact NASA Langley. Additionally, significant cuts have been proposed to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which could threaten the Community Development Block Grant and other important programs for the city. It is also uncertain what the impact of changes to federal trade policy may have on the region's ports, and whether the President's support for the coal industry will translate into increased activity at the coal piers and Newport News. Finally, other decreases in federal spending and employment being proposed by the President could have a significant impact on the state budget, which could in turn be passed on to cities and counties across the Commonwealth as has been done in the past. It is within this uncertainty that we are preparing the budget this year. With that in mind, we have prepared the budget as though traditional funding will continue, but will be prepared to make adjustments during the year if necessary. Additionally, as we prepare the fiscal 19 budget, we will have decreased flexibility. As noted, we've benefited from some unique circumstances in fiscal 18 with the end of some of our long-term commitments, such as the end of the long-term leases in excess of $500,000, with the Harbor Center garage lease being the largest. We have also used one-time funds to fund the final year of our commitments to the capital campaigns that we made many years ago to Hampton University and Christopher Newport University. We've been able to transfer the Council's strategic initiative funds from capital budget to the operating budget to further our key priorities, such as public safety and employee pay raises, but we will not be able to take these steps in the future, which could make future budgets more challenging if the revenue growth does not continue to improve. On the positive side, though, we've seen real estate values continue to slowly recover, and several economic development projects are on the verge of getting up and running. These will impact all of our tax base, from real estate to business personal property to sales and meals tax. We continue to see the development momentum with the new investments in the city, including ongoing projects such as the expansion of the Peninsula Town Center, the redevelopment of the Riverdale into River Point, anchored by Kroger and At Home, Lidl, Aldi, aggressive development at the H2O, the Armory reuse, the new Hyatt Place Hotel, and other investments such as the Macy's redevelopment plans. The value of construction permits more than doubled from fiscal 14 to fiscal 16, and we are optimistic that these trends will continue as we continue to seek development proposals for city-owned properties and work with private landowners, particularly in our master plan areas such as downtown and Buckrow, to seek expansions and redevelopment. Much of the new development we are seeing is the result of investments the city has made to grow our economy and tax base in recent years. The recommended budget continues to make these investments by moving City Council's strategic priorities forward. I believe our momentum will continue to build as the economy improves and businesses and families continue to choose Hampton. Without a doubt, the recession has made for many tough budget years. While I'm pleased there is continued improvement, we have not yet completely recovered, and in fact, the entire Hampton Roads region's recovery is ranked as one of the nation's slowest, according to the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. We are not yet back to the days with predictable solid revenue growth, and uncertainty about federal policy is also something that, as noted, could negatively impact us. In the face of these challenges, we continue to work hard to grow our tax base and a better future for our community. I firmly believe our residents, businesses, staff, and elected officials have clearly demonstrated that working together, we can overcome any challenge and chart a bright future for the city of Hampton. We are Hampton, a vibrant waterfront community celebrating and embracing 400 years of history and innovation to create an even more dynamic future. In closing, I'd like to publicly acknowledge and thank the wonderful group of department heads, assistant city managers, and our budget staff and finance staff for meeting the challenges posed by this year's budget. I would also like to thank our residents for their continued participation and input into our budget development process. We look forward to working with each council member in the coming weeks to better understand the budget and its impact on our community and workforce. As always, we'll stand ready to assist you in the community in your deliberations. The next steps will be, as I noted at the beginning, that April 15th, possibly April 14th, the copies of the manager's recommended budget will be online and in the libraries. Our first budget briefing and public hearing will be on April the 26th. We will have a special meeting on Wednesday, May 3rd for a public hearing and the first reading of the budget. And on May 10th, the second reading and adoption of the budget will occur. By tradition and practice, Council spends the month reviewing the budget and letting staff know the Council's priorities for any amendments to the budget. And so we will be, anxious to work with you to understand what, if anything, you'd like to see changed, so that by the time we get to May 10th, we're able to incorporate those changes. I know this was a bit of a lengthy overview, but I really thought it was important to align the preview with the Council's strategic priorities and show you how the investments that you're making, both in the operating budget and the capital budget, continue to support the vision that you've outlined for the community. We're able to take any questions you may have today, but understand that most of your questions will come after you receive the full document.
Did you take a breath? All right. It's a great job. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? I do have an observation that goes back to the statement that was made about HRT, and there's an increase in there. When Mr. Harrell came, I think it was at our March 22nd meeting, and he made a comment about, I guess as HRT is constructed, they cannot maintain a balance, a positive balance. And I asked the question if that was something that the General Assembly, but he says the way the cities have structured it, and that they would be looking at that at the meeting, I think, the next morning. Do you know if there have been any discussions about restructuring how HRT's, I guess it's bylaws or whatever, so it allows it to have a balance?
There's been no final decision made. I think that there's certainly a willingness to consider that. What has happened is that Mr. Harrell has reconstituted the Management and Finance Advisory Committee, and each city basically is sending their top budget and finance people together to work on all of the challenges and all of the steps that need to be taken, one of which would be a reexamination of whether we would be willing to let them keep a fund balance. And that group is going to be meeting, I think, in 1 or 2 weeks. We have assigned Brian DePropio and Carl Daughtry to that group, so I know we'll have our best thinking at the table, and we'll definitely keep you posted on all of those issues. If indeed that decision is made, it really wouldn't be part of the budget adoption, but we would probably need to bring back a new resolution with amendments to it that all cities agree to. But I definitely foresee that that is something that will receive serious consideration.
Great. I guess in one respect that constitutes a regional issue. Are there any other regional issues we want to look at? Any new business? Okay.